welcome to what I think is going to be a very interesting session on something that is of vital importance to all of us, water, right? And the panel is so eminent in their publications that, here's the pun, I'm kind of afloat with all that information. It's just swimming around my head. Sorry, I had to put that one in. When we talk about water, we normally think of places which have water scarcity like Rajasthan. But when you actually start looking at water architecture, there are places which have a lot of maybe rainfall, and yet you still have water structures there. In our panel today, we have someone, and Victoria, I've used that word last night when we were talking. You've sort of done this water pilgrimage, didn't you? In which you start off doing a lot of things, but then you spent recent time basically chasing stepwells.
That's right.
Over to you.
Okay, I became obsessed. First of all, I have to stand up because I get really too antsy.
Go right ahead.
First of all, I have to say also two things. I'm so excited to be here. I used to be in the audience. I was so jealous of everybody that was on this stage. So I'm thrilled to be here. And also,
You need to keep the mic really near.
Okay, sorry. But somebody has to do something about that. So I'm thrilled to be here. I was so excited to be asked. I've always wanted to do this. I was so jealous of anybody on this stage whenever I used to come. But I also need to really bow down to Jutta, without whom I never would have been able to do this book that I never expected to do. So Jutta, you've been nothing but wonderful. Nothing could make me more happy to be on this stage. Yeah, Jutta. Woo. So I want to start with the first slide, if we can. Okay, there we go.
They won't hear you, that won't help.
Is that better? Yes? Okay, this is my book, The Vanishing Stepwells, which I'm happy to say is not being sold in the bookstore because my publisher apparently didn't want to have it here. You can all write him and tell him, he's a jerk. I never planned to write a book. I became obsessed with stepwells, and obsession chose me. I did not choose it. And I've seen 200 now throughout India. And as I expected, this is not, there we go. Yay, technology. Okay, very quickly, because people ask me, how did you ever start doing stepwells? When I was first in India 30 years ago, I was taken in Gujarat to see basically what I thought was a wall. I was dropped off in what was then a dirt lot, told to walk to that wall and look over it. And when I did that, to me, my life changed. We are not taught to look. I have to eat this? Okay. If you say so, Aman. I looked over this wall, and a chasm opened up below me. And it was a shocking experience because we are raised to look up at architecture, not down into it. I couldn't tell what this was. And walking into it, progressing down into it, was a transformative experience. If you've been in a stepwell, and this is the Rudabai vow, which probably a lot of you have been in, and Jutta has written about it, walking into this structure below ground, this is all subterranean, the noises get hushed and the light becomes diffuse. And you can't really tell where you're walking. It telescopes into space. When you're at the bottom, it is as though you've moved into another world. Why won't this work?
You can change it if you like.
There. No, it's fine. I'm cursed. One of the things that appealed to me about stepwells is that they are hiding in plain sight. Because they're subterranean, you don't know they're there all the time. They're hiding often in sites that are visited by millions of tourists a year. And yet, since nobody knows about these internationally, and since the government and various towns and villages don't point them out, people don't have any idea what they're missing. This is at the Red Fort. It's one of the stepwells that had the least above-ground presence, and if you walk by it and you happen to be looking at a bird or an airplane, you would fall directly into it. This is a very interesting one because the British used this stepwell before partition to house, jail a lot of the freedom fighters. And when you go there, you can still see bars that are on the windows where they use it as a jail. The Indian Army subsequently took it over and turned it into a latrine, and then it was taken over by the ASI. You really have to forgive me, it's not my problem. Okay, next slide, please.
Yeah, that might work
Next.
better.
Okay. A lot of you have seen this stepwell, but I can't assume that everybody in this room has been to a stepwell or even knows what they are. But again, the idea that these are hiding amongst us and have so little vision above ground is one of the things that draws me to them. This is a stepwell in Delhi. It's one of many in Delhi. Delhi used to have 200 stepwells. It's off Haley Road. I know people that have grown up on Haley Road. Next. Next. Hello? Switch the next slide, please. I'm sorry. Okay, there, great. Those of you who've seen PK remember this. Amir Khan lived in this stepwell, and so now a lot of people visit it who didn't used to visit it in the past. Next. Oh, this is horrible. People think of stepwells as only being a way to get water 24/7, but in fact, they were among the most multifunctional buildings of their day. Many of them are still used as subterranean temples. This one you see there is the Lolark Kund in Varanasi. Once a year, there is a pilgrimage there for women who want to get pregnant, and thousands of people show up in that kund. They were also used along trade routes, and these are some of the most remote that you'll see. They're very difficult to find. These are both in Gujarat. The one on the left is in Gumli. I'm sure you've all been there. The one on the right is in Donk. I'm sure a lot of you have been there too. Move that slide.
Next slide, please.
Thank you. They were also very important charitable gifts from the community, and 25% are believed to have been commissioned by women. One of these, the one is Murtanaji, that's in Shekhawati and Junjunu. The one on the right is from Bundi. They came in so many shapes and sizes and scales. From the very intimately scaled, this one is in Bhuj. The one on the right is Neemrana Bauli, where I fell in love. A huge stepwell on the way to Delhi. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to stop there. L-shaped stepwells, round stepwells, square stepwells. This is also from Bundi. An octagonal stepwell. You see those occasionally. Some of them were incredibly simple, like this one outside of Champaner. And some, like Rani Ki Vav in Patan, are so unimaginably ornamental, you just cannot believe it. Another form that is very common is called a kund. You can recognize them because they access the groundwater much faster by being so steep, and you cannot take a bad photograph of a kund. But stepwells began, we think, around 300 to 500 AD. We don't know because there's so little known about them that it's very, very difficult to get accurate information. The one on the left is from the fort in Junagadh, the Parkot Fort. This is not that early, but it's to show you that they started out being rock cut by hand. But then within a few hundred years, they began to be made with masonry. The one on the right is from Donk. It's one of the earliest ones in India. You can see the condition it's in. It's from 600 AD. And then within 200 years, they became the most ornate, huge, important objects. This one, Chand Bauri, of course, on the way to Fatehpur Sikri. There's two different dates associated with it because the lower half is Hindu and the top spilling down the side, cascading, is a much later Islamic addition. They were found in every fort. For instance, on the left, or whatever direction it is for you, is from the Mandu Fort. The one on the right is from Nagaur, if you haven't seen that. They were in big cities. The one on the left is from Kapitvanj. The one on the right is from Hyderabad. Also out in remote villages, this is the Mukundpura stepwell in Haryana, where there's a number of beautiful ones. This is in Narnaul. And then again, along trade routes. These are the most difficult to find. You can drive around for hours. In my book, I included GPS coordinates, which if I had, I wouldn't have gone so pagal as I did. Like, I kept going, Bauli, Bauli, Bauli. And they said, who is this Pagal Videshi asking for stepwells? The one on the left is from Lavera Kalan, not far from Jodhpur.
Victoria, we do lose you at times.
Oh, God, would you just hold this in front of my face? I literally can't. I'm going to be licking this in a minute. Sorry, just look at the pictures. It really doesn't matter what I'm saying. Today, the problem with them, and the whole reason I wrote this book, which I did not want to write, but I figured after 200 and people don't know about them, and I really, really, really want them to be saved. Nadal, this is a very important stepwell on the left, just covered with garbage. The one on the right is from a stepwell in Gujarat that's still a functioning temple, and yet you see how it's used. Also, the cities have built up around them. This is another reason why they become obsolete. On the left, oops, I didn't want to do that, come back. The one in the left is also from Gujarat, and the one on the right, well, that is from Kapidvanj. That one is being mined for its stone. You can see how impossible it is to find these. They're embedded in the city, and they would have been outside the city when they were first built. Those are both from the 13th century, by the way. Also, a lot of them have been destroyed because of natural or man-made disasters. The one on the left was devastated in the 2001 earthquake in Gujarat. And on the right, this one is in Amer. And unfortunately, it was one of the ones that was restored by the Hindustan Coca-Cola public-private restoration deal. It's the Sarai Bauli. And after they restored it, part of it collapsed because the workmanship just wasn't that good. Even recently, in the last couple weeks, this is the last stepwell in my book, the Badshapur Bauli, 1905. It was very late, right outside in Gurgaon. And the person who owned it began to build a road on top of it. So part of this has already been filled in. Let me just show you a couple positive things about stepwells. Rani Ki Vav in Patton became a World Heritage Site just a couple years ago. One of the most grandiose stepwells of all time. And there's ways of repurposing them, which have been brilliant. On the left, that is the Ravla Narle Hotel, which has a beautiful stepwell on their property. They've fixed it up, and they have dinner in the stepwell every couple nights a week, which is a fantastic experience. On the right, it's not a stepwell, it's more of a cistern in Jaipur. And you can see how it was influenced by stepwell building and design. Some of them are being restored. This is in Bundi. Intalk, fantastic organization, has been transforming that. And this is, I want to end with this project. Some of you may be familiar with this in Jodhpur. 5 years ago, I took this picture of a beautiful 18th century stepwell. It looked horrible, it was toxic, it stank, it was just gross. And then the people that owned it took 500 truckloads of this out of it. They had no idea what it looked like under the water. And this is how it turned out. Isn't that fantastic? The last slide. This is what it is today. It's a center of a community. It's number 3 on TripAdvisor of things to see in Jodhpur. And this is what can happen if we all work together to transform these from these disintegrating wrecks into something useful. And that's now what you have to do. It should not be a Videsi from Chicago writing this book. It's all up to you now. And that's my spiel.
That's your spiel, only temporarily. That's only your spiel temporarily. I was, initially when I realized that there wouldn't be a copy of Victoria's latest book, The Vanishing Stepwells, I was wondering, how are we going to get it across? You solved that problem by doing this walkthrough. Thank you very much. The sad news is that the Badshapur that you showed us has just been covered over in the last 3 or 4 days. No, ICOMOS had shown, maybe if they have, that's great. But what is also encouraging, which is where you stopped and kind of reopened the floor, is right in front of me, I'm on home ground, right? So right in front of me on one side, I have somebody who's been saving the local stepwell there. And on the other side, I have somebody who's been making films, shooting them, and they're working on water structures, including stepwells. That's just in the front row. I'm assuming we have equally enthusiastic people all the way through. So thank you for that, as I said, water pilgrimage. If you think Victoria needs another panel by herself, wait till you hear the others. They all do. And I'm going to be on every single one of them with you. But Jutta, coming to you, because you've come to this situation where everybody looks up to your work, and you have been a trendsetter in so many ways. If I was to ask a question like, is any water structure that has maybe a spring and has steps, would that be a step well? Because Victoria, you did point to the thing that some of them are kunds, some of them are bowries. Do you want to come in on that? Yeah. And I know you have some slides, so whenever you're ready for them, they'll put them on.
Yeah, good afternoon. So today,
Speak in front.
Yeah.
There.
yeah, today we are talking about water, the language of water, and if water engages with architecture, architecture designs and kind of moderates and negotiates. And now coming to your question, everything that has steps might not be a step well. I mean, the term step well came up, I think, only in the 19th century by the British archaeological people who found something very interesting. Sometimes they were just broken when they were traveling around and documenting all the artistic and archaeological and architectural heritage in India. So something with steps that was going down into the earth, people were just calling step well. I mean, it is a term that was constituted, it didn't exist. In Indian languages, we all talk about Bauli or in in Gujarat it would be Vau or Vauri. In Hindi it would be Bauri sometimes.
And Bauli.
And Bauli also. And this term comes from the Sanskrit word Vapi, which is a general term in already the oldest texts on architecture, like all the Shilpa Shastras. They mention these kind of water architecture because it was one of the most important parts of architecture in India. And the step wells actually are underground monuments, as Victoria was telling. And I just wanted to show you a few slides just to explain to you, maybe visually, what step wells are, what kunds are, what kind of a combination of stepwell kund are. Could we have this slide, please?
And you also talked about, while we have the slides coming on, Victoria mentioned early stepwells. So, you might want to bring that in also as we watch the slides.
Yeah, I mean, the earlier stepwells would be kind of carved into the
Slides,
rock.
please.
Victoria showed Navgan Ku and Adhikari Vau in Gujarat. These might be contemporary to the Buddhist caves which are there on the mountains, because wherever one lives, one needs water. And how does one keep water? In cisterns. So the earlier stepwells were kind of cisterns connected with the kind of caves where the Buddhists and the monks were living. Yeah, okay, the next one.
I think they've changed it.
Yeah, so I actually just start with a contrast. What you see here is not a stepwell, obviously, because when you talk about water and architecture and the design of water, there are two possibilities. Either water is on the surface, as you can see here. It's just a huge pond. It's a temple pond in Tamil Nadu. Or you go down into the earth. And so you have underground monuments, like here. We can see on your right, I think it's on your right, it is a stepwell Rani Neebauer, which you might have already seen in Victoria's slides, which is a step well, which is a monument descending down into the earth with a passage of about 70 meters long and about 20 meters broad. You can see the setting on the right side. That means you enter from the ground floor and slowly in flights of steps you descend down up to the groundwater level, up to the aquifers, where then the well is. So that is how a step well is constituted. And on the right side you just see a few slides of the setup of the intermediate constructions. And since stepwells are kind of subterranean structures, sometimes I do call them underground temples then, because most of the stepwells in Gujarat particularly are covered on all the sides and with beautiful rows of relief work, of sculptures, and beautiful carvings, which is more or less part of the general mainstream architecture that is there that happened in Gujarat. Because none of the monuments are growing or were created in a vacuum. They all refer to the kind of ethos of its times in terms of its aesthetics, in terms of iconography, or the stylistic features.
And they all have specific names in different areas, regions, sub-regions.
They have different names, yeah, of course. That each stepwell has a name, and I might come to that later, why they are often called Rani Ki Vav or Mata Bhavani Ni Vav. And here I show you that how a stepwell is geniusly conceived with the stairs descending down into the depth of the earth where the water level is. Sometimes it might be 20 meters, sometimes 40 meters, depending on the geomorphological region around. I just might have to run a bit faster, I think. Yeah. A stepwell, since it is not built like a temple from the ground level into the sky, that means a building has all empty, has space around. That means you could build stone by stone up into the air, so to say. Whereas a stepwell, or a deep kund for that matter, is built down into the earth, so it has to have a specific expertise of hydrotechnological construction methods, and therefore that the side walls or the thrust of the side walls would not cave in and the monument would then break down. One has to have certain numbers of intermediate constructions, as you can see here on the right side, or on the left you can also see that there are constructions like balconies around to hold the structure in its place.
So they're actually architecturally necessary in a sense.
Yes.
The vocabulary is something that needs to be there, otherwise it's going to collapse.
Yeah, absolutely. And that again depends on the geological surroundings, because if the area is kind of rocky, you can have, let's say, a distance of 17 or 20 meters without intermediate constructions. But if the soil is rather sandy, you need every 2 meters, a kind of construction.
And
so that
a lot of your initial work was in Gujarat,
yes,
which has a lot of that sand, I suppose,
yes,
and Rajasthan would have similar things, but not maybe when you come to Karnataka or someplace, or with Pushkarnis or any of the others?
Yeah, that's true. Although I think stepwells are basically, not only, but basically in the northern and western India.
Yes.
In the south, they are more kind of open ponds or kind of open tanks or temple tanks or so. So here, just a kind of a vision how one looks from the bottom of a stepwell up to the sky. Although the stepwell normally is open to the sky, but the side walls are getting tapering, and you can see that the sunlight is gleaming through the passage, the descending passage. Again, next slide. Very genius is the system of stairs, and I think one really has to do more research into this aspect, into this technical aspect, because it is so intriguing how the parallel system of flights of stairs is intercepted by these lateral blocks of pyramidal stairs, as you can see at the bottom row. And I think this is something really very unique that the old traditional architects in Gujarat as well as Rajasthan have evolved to reach in a less space, deeper down into the earth.
Right.
And that is common to stepwells as well as kunds and ponds. Therefore, I will show you a visual of a kund. It is the Surya Kund in Modera, one of the most beautiful temples and quite well preserved in Gujarat.
And it's not far from the Rani Ki Vav,
It's
which
not
is
far,
World Heritage.
and of the same period,
Yes.
more or less. So both, as I said, they both grew or both were created not in a vacuum, but related to each other. And I mean, here one can see that the play of light and shadow is absolutely fantastic and is consciously done. I mean, here also you have just imagined the kind of idea that the architect had to have the temple and the kunda, the temple tank, which you can see here with the green water, just adjacent to each other and in one symmetrical, in one axis. So this is the view from the kund to the temple. You have seen already Chanki Bauli, Victoria has shown you. It is one of the most magnificent monuments, I think, for my feeling. As you can see, it has 13 stories underground. And the picture only shows 11 of it. You can imagine there are 2 more stories.
And people, they've been fascinated so much that it's appeared on many TV shows also.
Yeah, I know.
Not in a
Yeah.
ghost story, but as a factual
As
thing.
a factor.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the steps are so fantastic. And the kind of idea of light and shadow, as I said, in the morning it looks completely different than during the midday sun and in the afternoon. And as I said, it was not just randomly done, but people were really conscious about it. Yeah. And another system how to guard against the caving in of the side walls is this kind of tapering sidewall, the tapering section, as you can see here in this stepwell in Delhi.
Maybe we could just do the slides faster.
Faster,
perhaps.
yeah. And
Still talk?
yeah, and one idea or one architectural idea, which is part of, as I said, water hygiene, because I think this is really also something extremely important, and people in traditional societies were very well aware of it, that water should not be polluted. Water is the lifeline of everybody and has to be clean, has to be kept clean. That means it should not be touched by humans or animals or so. So the water in the well, at the end of a step well or a kund or so, was not approachable. People could not approach it, whereas at the end of a step well of the descending passage, there was a small kind of pond, as you can see on the right lower slide. That pond was approachable. People could go there, women could go there, sit around, wash their clothes. Animals could also be brought down to be watered, or people could just relax there. And that water could be polluted. That means you could sit there, take bath, put your feet into it. Okay, I'm rushing through. And I think that is really something, a very genius system in India, I mean by the traditional architects. This is just a small kind of idea that the well, because it is the most important part of a step well, was considered very sacred, more or less like ancient texts. The ancient Silpa Shastras mention that the well is something like the Garbhagriha in a temple, means the sanctum sanctorum. And one can see here in the center an image, a sculpture of Vishnu Sheshashayin, which is even today being worshipped by a flower garland.
Can we?
Yeah, and that I think I need not talk too much about it. Victoria already showed the slide of Mata Bhavani Nivau as a sacred place. It is a place sacred to the goddess, to the worship of the goddess. Yeah, and here, just to reiterate, to confirm that many step wells are places of worship, as you can see here, the kind of...
Growing up in Rajasthan, something that I took in, we can go on with the slide
Yeah,
maybe,
okay.
was the way that they talked of water. And I was very little when I came across this saying in Western Rajasthan, which was basically spill as much ghee, clarified butter, oil, anything that you want. Spill as much pearls if you had any. A drop of water is more precious than blood. And when as a child I heard it, even then my hair stood on end, just the way it was said with such great passion.
Yeah.
So yes, water
Yeah,
has had this very, very important,
Yeah.
crucial role, and so many of you have been documenting it.
Yeah.
Jutta, we will want to come back to you in a minute. Do you
Yeah.
have another slide now? Because I know that Aman has been working on not the
Yeah.
vanishing stepwells so much as he's made a vanished, well, not quite. He's made a stepwell come to life before it had vanished, or something
Okay.
of the sort.
Please
If
close.
that sounds-
Please close my slideshow.
And we will come back to
We'll
the
come
two
back
slides
to
you
this.
have. No, if I'm being cryptic, it's because Aman has something to show us with what he's done with stepwells. But on this, in this platform, I think Aman and I had our first session before the Lit Fest became the Lit Fest.
Absolutely.
And it was the Darbar Hall. And, contrary to the urban legend going around, it was an interesting
Yes.
panel on Rajasthan. What do you have to share among your many, many, many things on Rajasthan?
I think that people say that the future wars will not be about petrol, they'll be about water. So water is very precious, and because we are Indian, and India is the only continuously alive civilization in the whole world, which is not a matter of small merit. When you think of Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, Egypt, all the civilizations were born, lived and died, but the Indian civilization has gone on and on, Kuch baat hai ki hasti mitti nahi hamari. When we say, so I think it's not just about studying them and writing papers about them and restoring them. I think that we have the means to do them also. So
can we go on to
So
your
I've
slide?
actually, I didn't restore one. I built one from fresh.
Exactly.
Yes.
I was going to say it hasn't vanished, but then it's come to life in a sense. May we have Aman's first slide, please? Unless we can get technology to work from this side.
Yeah. So no, this is just a picture to show that this is a flat piece of land from where the digging of this step well began. And this is 50 kilometers from Delhi, not very far from Sona. And I had the idea that I'm actually a historian by education, but not being an architect, many architects tell me is a good thing because then I don't think within the box. So I made a drawing of the flat land that you see, and I made a well in the middle, dug out this huge part of earth, which you see is white, built these structures and put back the earth on top of it again. So now you don't see anything but just a mound. And actually, the drawing is a bit like noughts and crosses. There are just two lines like that. And you enter from 2 points, and you'll see how. So you see the earth is the white part, and then there are 3 structures. So in this picture, you can see the well in the middle, the round structure, and the digging. So it was all done afresh. But people, when they see it, keep saying, how did you know it was here? How did you excavate it? It isn't excavated, it's built now.
While you're waiting for the slide
Yeah.
to change, where does
Okay.
your water come in from? Are you showing that to
No,
us?
the water doesn't come from anywhere because, there's a water table. So if you go down 60 feet, the water came. But then around the area, because there are hills, so the water flows down and comes into the basin around it and replenishes itself. So because there are 3 stories, it's fairly huge. It is a madness, but it's been built. There's 3 other friends who are part of this, and now now when you reach there, you only see this mound. And the structure you see on the side is where you enter from. On top of that is a water. So when you get down into the earth, this is how the steps are. And when you look up, this is how it is. So I've also used bricks in the middle because there are some villages around Haryana where they have 16th century bricks because they were old houses, people who left for Pakistan really. So these have also been used. So this is all you see when you arrive there. And there are 13 light wells, and as you go down, you don't enter into darkness. There's light coming in from all the courtyards, and if it rains, the rainwater goes back into the well. Sorry. So this is that round well which you had seen dug, and then I decided that it should be octagonal on top, so in the middle I've sort of reconciled the circle into an octagon by squinches. And you can also sit within, you can get out over the water and sit. Those brackets are the seats which you see.
So
in fact, I once...
That's the way it's different to the traditional one where you would never have got into the water,
No,
right?
yeah, you sit on top of the water. So the slide at the bottom is important because you actually see there are 32 rooms around it. And because we have technology, you can have bathrooms down below and you can pump the sewage up. So it is warm in winter. I slept one New Year's Eve because on the 1st of January I always drive out to some exciting place where I'm working. And it was freezing cold, and I slept down below with one thin Jaipur quilt. And in summer, you actually, if you put a fan, I mean, this must be a fluke, but you have cold, hot air that gushes in, and from those points in the middle picture, you can see little holes. The air that gushes up is actually like air conditioning. So the workers in the afternoon put their mats and lie on top of that, and cold air comes from underneath. So
then it's not a fluke. Then you've hit the nail on what a water structure should have been.
What should have been, yeah. So I think it's good karma, lots of observation, and it's not a copy of anything. It's, people say, what have you seen? You don't have to copy things. We happen to have a little bit of brain, I hope. And so this is how it's going to be. The level at the bottom is the middle level is the water level. So the floor is very reflective and blue, and the one above that, this is the water room. There's a whole water floor actually. You can change. And above this is the tree floor, because just when you get under the earth, they're the roots of the trees. So this is the design is all about roots and so on. Is that
So,
it? Okay.
Aman, if this is not just, and this is laudable, if this is not just, an insane person's vision come to life, I'm going to grab you after this. I have 100 cats
Not insane.
No, not insane, definitely. I have 100 cats living not far from Neemrana. We're going to see what we can do by way of a water structure there. So you're onto that. But we were talking, and yes, I can see Jutta reaching for a mic. There's one near you. Because you were saying there was something you wanted to say about stepwells.
Yeah.
As you can see, we can have panels going on forever.
Yeah.
But we'll get...
Can I have my slideshow again on?
New ones?
Because
I hope.
yeah, new ones. I wanted to respond to Aman because he was lucky because he is in today's time where there is concrete and cement, and so he could build a stepwell absolutely watertight.
Slide, please.
Whereas in earlier times, you have to imagine that people built stepwells, which were also kind of dry places for living, without having cement as such, but just with stones and mortar. Yeah, like here. And as Aman was saying, stepwells are kind of alternative methods for architecture, for living spaces. And this is a stepwell which was built about 100 years ago, or more than 150 years ago, at a palace in Vankaner in Gujarat, a small kingdom in Gujarat, where where the royal family built this kind of stepwell as a summer palace. As Aman was saying, that in summer it was very cool because there was water, it was open to the sky. It was like air conditioning in those days. And winter, when it was very cold outside, it was, very warm. So here one can see the water, the well in the center. All around there are rooms. I just have another slide. And there are balconies. One could sit comfortably all around the water. And of course, where there's water, Ganges should not be far away. So there's also a small sculpture of Shiva, Shivji, where Ganges water is flowing down from his matted hair when the spring is put on.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because I can see Victoria went for the mic, so she's going to say something in a minute. But Sringverpura, which is an archaeological site going back to 200 BCE, actually had this concept of not polluting the Ganga. So there was a channel which went from the river during the monsoon through a couple of settling tanks. So probably not stepwells, but I'm coming to the stepwell part. The third of them had a place for sacred, some sort of worship took place. That would be like your Garbhagriha that you talked about. But a settling tank, another tank from which you drew water, this third one which could have been for sacred use, possibly. But then equally interesting, as Victoria, you were showing, and so were you, a place for the excess water to flow out, so you don't actually end up with stale water. Now, it seems to me they must have been as innovative at that time as Aman has been with this concept of getting water in your area in a way that is suiting the means, that is suiting the available, you have a certain type of material available.
What would be nice is to make a whole housing colony, because India is a warm country. So if you have if you have hot weather or warm weather for 8 months, so we have to cater for the 8 months. And even in winter, when you go down, 22, this idea I just had from one simple fact that 20 feet below the earth, the temperature is constant everywhere. So if you were in Siberia and you went down, 22 feet, the temperature is constant. So why would we not make use of that? And everybody's complaining about these ugly glass structures and the heat that the glass takes in. But then what are all the architecture schools teaching people? It's not copying anything. It's if you have a requirement, let's say we want to do the Diggi festival and it has to be in summer, it can all be underground in an extraordinary building.
And it used to be underground in basements as part of our architecture at one
absolutely.
point. Because of the time factor, and I can see Victoria's kind of wanting to talk but being very polite about not jumping up.
Always.
How about we have you in?
Well, I think everything you two have said is brilliant, and the idea of making a new stepwell and reinvigorating them and the whole history of it. I just have to say that the reason my book is called The Vanishing Stepwells is because they are, in fact, not appreciated, they're not respected, they've been completely severed from their community in the way that they were originally used. The reason I wrote this book was specifically to raise awareness. I can't tell you the number of people, certainly outside of India, and I'm sorry to say even within it, that have no conception that these things even exist. I cannot understand. I know thousands of architects, very well trained, who have never seen one. They're never in a history book. They're not in guidebooks. I have to show guides where these are. In every city I go to, people who live down the street from one have no idea it's there. So even though understanding the incredible history, the structure, how they're built, how we can reuse them, to me the most important thing is to find out about their existence, go and see them, take tours. It's the only way that these are going to survive is if we tie them back to their communities, get money, get tourists there, sell them chips, sell them water, and suddenly there'll be more interest in them because they will have a contemporary purpose. There, I said my spiel.
That's a great one you've said, because that's the whole purpose of finding out why is there a disjunct. Well, it's very easy to say, the 20th century, 21st century, you have tap water, you don't need all of this. But we do. We still live with water shortages. We have solutions there. We are seeing stepwells being filled up. As I said earlier, because I'm on home ground, I'm recognizing people who are actually working on reviving stepwells in their own area, who are documenting stepwells. We would love to have more from all of you, but I think to be fair, we don't have that much time for questions or comments. May I open the floor out now? And there's a hand there, back there. Who's got the mic? A hand all the way back. Do you have a mic?
Yes.
Right. And then for you, and then the lady back there. Yeah. 3, and then we'll just go. Yeah.
I just thought it might be of interest that the stepwell in Jodhpur outside Ras was actually a working stepwell until 1950 at the time of the merger of the states. So it was really after the princely states were merged that I think they were neglected. I don't know if you have gathered if this is correct as to when the neglect started and why.
Right. Can we have names also? Can you give your name and the rest of you?
Roddy Sale.
Thank you.
What's the
we'll take that as
question?
a comment. Let's take a couple and then comment on it.
fine.
Right?
Hello, Prashant. I just wondered if it was possible to kind of integrate some of these ideas, hello down here, into kind of contemporary residential or even commercial buildings where they could be used as a social area, even in a large block of flats or even a kind of a large campus academically or in a commercial context as well.
Yeah. Okay. And we have someone back there.
Yeah.
There's
Good
a lady
evening,
back there
everybody.
as well.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Arvind Jain from Jaipur. I'm a civil engineer, and I have got the opportunity with the state government and local body to revive these heritage structures like Bawdis and you can say step wells. And you say it's vanishing, but I will say it's not vanishing Rajasthan. In Jaipur, we have revived 33 Bawdis or the step wells and completed 19 step wells having the replenishment of water over there. And like when you can have a name of Chila Bawdi at Amir, it's a good tourist spot and you can have a go around it aesthetic and environmentally, and the water body has been revived over there. So what I mean to say,
Okay, thank you for that information, and may more such stepwells be revived. You're working for the government, I take it, and part of the Jal Abhiyan?
yeah, please.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
We have lots of, let's just take the questions as they're coming and then do a general comment, or the comments as they're coming and do a general.
Hello, Ratnaswamy, and I just want to know why...
Sorry, can't hear you.
Yeah, Ratnaswamy is my name, and I want to know why the stepwells are mainly in Western India, why not in the rest of the country?
Okay. Why are the stepwells in Western India so much and not in other areas was the question.
Where there's a
next
water
person,
shortage.
please speak into the mic like there.
Hi, my name is Keshav. I'm from Delhi, and I've recently become acquainted with some of the stepwells over there. I think my first question is to anyone on the panel who wants to take it. How do we have several of these old stepwells in cities like Delhi and Jaipur. How do we make them active social spaces? Because I don't see like tourism in Mehrauli, being the sole way of saving Gadak or Gandaki Bauli or spaces like that. How do we make them active social space? Not social, but like how can we actively use these spaces to convert them into living spaces? And the other quick point of clarification from Jutta was, you said only a small section of the water, a small amount of the water in some of these stepwells was accessible physically to people to avoid pollution. Could you clarify how that works? Because it seems to me that when I've been to one of these spaces, I can just go right down to the water. Usually it's really dirty these days, so one doesn't. But what's changed and what's happening over there?
Thank you. We'll let the panel come in now and take the other questions in half a second.
Yes.
And just to add to that, most architectural schools who now have conservation departments have plans on looking at stepwells or other forms of unused buildings, other structures, to incorporate it as community spaces, just to throw that
To
in.
answer the first question at the back, I think with independence and the privy purses and all that happened, the government created an atmosphere which was a kind of mock socialist atmosphere, that all these palaces and structures and all is nonsense and we are going to be a modern India and so on. So I think that cycle needed to end, and for bureaucracy, politicians, governments, tourism, everybody to understand the value of these. So it's not justifiable, but so it happened, I think.
Okay.
Hello.
All right,
May I
since you're
please?
coming in. All right, please do.
Victoria, Jutta and Aman.
Let's have your name again, please.
Chetan Prajapati.
Chetan.
I must say that your work has been done very commendably. And I want to ask you that I belong to the town Patan from North Gujarat, Rani Ki Vav Stepwell. I have spent my most of the childhood there. But I want to ask you, there have been many stepwells in Gujarat. I think they have been left unstudied, I think. So why did you not put some, or why did you not extend your knowledge upon it? Was that because of lack of time, or were they not under your consideration?
No, it's not very clear what you're saying, but the question broadly is what that we should be using these. The thing is that once the government stops saying we and they, when the government says we won't do it and we won't let you do it, is the reason why all this has happened. Okay. But I think that wall is breaking down. So if there are private initiatives in different areas, in Amer, for example, if somebody wants to have a function, in a step well, and the gentleman over there, he's not going to say, it's mine, I have done it, and you can't enter. Right. So I think there is a healthy future coming.
And we need to also think in terms of, are we going to turn something into just museum spaces, or activity spaces as in a performing space, or make it community space. So we are taking in broader aspects. We are short of time. You've grabbed the mic, Rashmi. Go right ahead.
Rashmi Dickinson. I am a bit like Victoria. I think Bowery chose me rather than the other way around, and I have pretty much sacrificed half my life, well, at least last 17 years, trying to save it from going into corporate hands through corrupt offices and so on, whatever. Anyway, this is a Bowery called Khalsa Ki Bowery, which was built by Hargobind Natani on the birth of his daughter. Very rare. Normally these things used to be built on the birth of a son. Anyway, the question that I wanted to ask is, you mentioned Boweries and Kund. The local people, there are about 23 Boweries in Amer. They say that the Kund is something where the water collects, the rainwater collects from the surface and comes down. They're all underground. And Bowery is something that is actually underground water table, whereas that's not how I seem to think. So, thank you.
Yeah, good. No, I mean, it's not like this, that the step well reaches, that only step wells reach the aquifer in the ground. Also the kunds, for example, the Modera Kund, it also has a kind of well at the bottom, and often these kunds, or for example Abaneri, the Chand Ki Bauli, you can see the section, it is kind of funnel-like up to the groundwater level. So also a kund reaches the groundwater level. It's not only the step wells.
We can actually go on this because there are several water networks that are being set up. A lot of NGOs are working on it, architects are working on it. What's been wonderful is, and Jutta, you've got your latest book, which is not on step wells. So if you would like to show the other forms of water structures, and Victoria's got this wonderful book. I Googled it because I don't have my grubby paws on it yet, but I'm going, thank you very much. I was hoping you would say that. But the thing is, what can we, some of you are water warriors in your own way. And I'm serious. I have 100 cats. I have land near Neemrana. We need something there. We can have social housing. Let's go for it. What can we do collectively so that not just these beautiful works of the past are kind of saved as museum pieces, but more than that, they can become a part of the living memory, living heritage, living life of all of us. That's an open question. What can all of you do? Let's do it together. There's a virtual water museum coming up soon, but it needs to be more than, as you say, more than merely recounting something and putting it in photographs or on the web. It's keeping it alive. It's keeping it from being covered over. Victoria Lautman, Jutta Jain-Neubauer, Aman Nath, and this wonderful audience. I'm sorry we couldn't take everybody's questions. I'm sorry we couldn't take all that you had to say. There is so much more. Another time, another panel. What is time after all in India? It's all collapsible. Thank you very much for a wonderful session.